Hey everyone, Emily here from TravelAndLedger, and I am here to inspire you to take more vacations and to add more vacations to the books. Today I'm going to be talking about how I've managed to travel the world. It's a lot easier than you may think it is, so keep on watching and I'll show you how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's not a secret. The easiest way to travel the world is to make friends in other countries. For me, I had it pretty easy because I went to Denison University and they had an amazing international student program there. So that was my first introduction to meeting people from everywhere. I don't know how they did it, but they had people from Argentina, from India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, almost anywhere you can name. They had found somebody and brought them to this school. So it was really cool for me being kind of thrown in front of all these other cultures. I got to know all the different holidays that there are all around the world. There's so many holidays. You could just basically party almost every day. And that's what we did in college. But seriously speaking, it really does come down to social circle. Because what's going to happen is you're going to feel safe because you know someone in that country. Maybe they're not in that city exactly, but at least you know they're in the country. So if it came down to it, you could call them in case of an emergency or something. You know, they have your point of contact, or if you have questions about somewhere, most likely they've been there before. Even just some random person that you've met on Instagram or TikTok or something, and you're looking to maybe go to Dubai, right? So you could ask them, where should I stay? What's the safe areas? And they'll tell you. And, now we have so many other travel bloggers that do world travel. I'm sure there's articles about it too. You can reach out to travel bloggers. There's all kinds of people out there that are just wealths of information. With the help of the internet, now you can make international friends and know all these things about other countries because other people have traveled there and they wrote blogs about it or made YouTube videos about it. So now your safety level is getting even safer because you're kind of familiar with what you're getting into. And then you can add on cruise lines or class trips. So now you can add on group trips. So even if you want to break off and do your own thing, you can do something with a group. There's so many groups and cruises and all sorts of things that are going on all the time that you can easily jump in on now. They even have Facebook groups that are groups of girls. So you don't even have to worry about traveling with guys. You're just traveling with girls. It really facilitates world travel. So if you haven't traveled to somewhere in the world yet, you should, because it really opens your eyes to maybe this is how we operate here in America, or this is how you operate in your small town. But if you went to Hawaii, for example, even though that's in the United States, but even just going somewhere else in the same country, you can have a whole different lifestyle. You could wake up and go to the beach and go to work and go to the beach, and that's your life, is you live on the beach. Oftentimes we feel kind of trapped in this way of life that we were brought up in, but we don't realize there's a whole big world out there. There's so many different languages out there. There's so many different cultures out there that you are welcome to go into. That the world is so much smaller than it used to be. You can really move to India and experience the culture. Have you ever watched 90 Day Fiancé or 90 Day Fiancé the other way? It's literally about people who go into these other cultures and the community adopts them and takes them in as their own. So just to recap, it really just comes down to saving enough money and creating a social network that can allow you to travel. And if you don't have a social network that allows you to travel, you can join in a Facebook group or take a cruise, as I said. There's no excuses for you not to travel the world. The only reason you're not traveling the world is because you're scared to do it. So you should just do it. I mean, it's a great experience. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you all about my experiences. I don't know how I just flung that in my face, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you all about my experiences, and hopefully they'll inspire you to travel the world too. So when I was in high school, we had a foreign exchange student, and her name was Rebecca, and she lived in Australia. And I was always obsessed with Australia. I just love their accent. I always thought it was so cool. So when I met her, of course, I was like, girl, we have to be friends because you're from Australia, and I love Australia. I even would do the accent. I'm real corny. I geek out over stuff. I would sit there and do it for my parents and all sorts of stuff. I'm that girl. But so she was not impressed. She was just yeah, this is just how we talk. But she also wanted to learn the American accent. So between the two of us, I perfected my Australian accent and she perfected her American accent. And it was all funny and hilarious. Made videos and everything. So when I went to college, I had the opportunity to do a study abroad program. At the time, I was in theater, so I didn't really want to do a study abroad because then I would miss out on the theater season, which we only had, I think it was 2 plays per year or something like that. So I really wanted to be in the play. So what I did instead was I did a work abroad. So this is one of those groups that I was talking about that you can jump in on. This one was not necessarily a group trip, but it's a collaboration of people. It's called Bunak, bunak.org, bunac.org. And the eligibility is you need to hold a UK, US, or New Zealand passport and be aged between 18 to 35. And you can work all over the world. The best part about it is that through the program, they help you find housing, they help you find work, they help you socialize. When I was in Australia, they had a Bunak office in Melbourne. So I was able to go in there, and they always had pickup jobs. Helping load carpets into a truck was one of them, I remember. And there was like strawberry picking. There was just like these random odd jobs. So you didn't have to have a full-time job in order to work. When you had the young professional visa, you were able to pick up work or work while you were there. So you didn't have to just depend on your savings. I think this is something that people worry about when they travel the world because they think, oh, I need to have all this money and I need to do this. But when you go through a program, or if you just get a work visa, you'll be able to pick up jobs. And there's always the opportunity to make money when you're traveling. So I just wanted to put that out there. So this was my first international trip, and it was also my first trip away from home for that long, which I did it for 3 months, and I'll admit that it was too long. I hadn't been away from my parents for that long, and even though you're in college, you go home for holidays and everything. So just the distance and doing a solo vacation as my first trip took a toll on me too. So if this is going to be your first venture abroad, I would say do a month tops. Just try it out, see how you like it. Because I want to say I was fine for the first 2 months, but that 3rd month was just really rough. It was too long, I think. Again, I was 19. As you're older, you probably have a little more maturity and you can be away from everyone for that long. But just the feeling, especially when it's your first trip, that feeling of the distance, you really feel the distance. Like I can't just drive home. I can't just fly home. Like once you get on the airplane and you are on the airplane for 19 plus hours, you feel the distance. Being 19, it was awesome because I was able to stay in a youth hostel. The hostel had all kinds of ages there, but the cool thing about living in a hostel is you're bunking with people from all over the world. So automatically you kind of become friends with people that you're bunking with. The room that I had was the cheapest. So there was 6 beds in a room. So of course I was a 19-year-old in Australia and I was able to drink. So I went to all the social functions. Hostels and Bunak had a ton of different things going on to the point that they would have a bus that would come and pick us up and take us to whatever was the backpacker night of the week. Australia had backpacker night. I wish we did that more in United States because it was so fun because then you got to meet all the other people that were staying at the other hostels, and we would play games, and then we would meet up throughout the week because a lot of us were going to the same destinations, or we would just see each other in passing, So that was one of the best parts of the whole hostel experience. And even just being in Australia, there's so many cool things to see in Australia. I was in Sydney for 2 days because I did go see my friend Rebecca that was there. And then I spent the rest of my time in Melbourne because I wanted to see the 12 Apostles and all that stuff. And now looking back, I wish I would have seen the Great Barrier Reef because it's slowly deteriorating, but I'll get back there eventually. But I did see the 12 Apostles, which are now 11 Apostles. I was looking to go there as soon as I had gotten to Melbourne, so it was just a matter of time before I found a group of friends that also wanted to take the same trip. So there was a couple other guys that were there for 2 weeks, and they were planning to go to the same place. One of them was from England, and one of them was from New Zealand, and they were like, let's just rent a car together and go and check it out. So on the way down, it was really fun because we would stop at all these little signs that would say the most random things, right? Like waterfall this way, and it would be an arrow pointing. So we would go drive, and next thing you know, there's this huge waterfall. There wasn't a sign for it or anything. It's literally like a little wood sign that said waterfall. It was just this huge, huge waterfall. Then we would keep going, and there was a sign for whales, right? And again, it was one of these little wooden, I don't know if it was locals that would make the signs or what. And it would say Wales. So we went up to this hill. It went all the way up. And on the top of the hill, I do not kid you, I swear they were killer whales. Everybody was like, no, they're humpbacks. They were killer whales. I think they were killer whales. So then we went to the 12 Apostles. We ended up just sleeping in the car. We didn't bother getting a hotel or anything. We were all kids, you know. And then we just drove back. And along the way, we hit a bunch of beaches, and it was really fun. And again, it's one of those things you would never do unless you meet a random group of people and you just jump on the trip with them. Experiencing the other culture was really cool too, because they have Aussie rules football there where you kind of get to sit anywhere in the stadium. So that was awesome. And then you get to go on the field afterwards. So I have all these pictures like posing with the footballs and stuff. And again, just staying at the hostel was so cool. I met people from Scotland, England, New Zealand. Unfortunately, this was back when MySpace was a thing and email was just kind of becoming, like AOL Messenger was a thing. So a lot of people that I have all the email and all of their contact information, I've lost touch with everybody. So if any of you guys are watching this video, hit me up because I'd love to do like a mini reunion. It would be so much fun. The next way that you're going to see the world is going to wedding excursions. So my cousin got married in Jamaica. So that was my first time in Jamaica. We stayed at a Sandals and it was so pretty. It was so pretty. Well, the dogs don't want me to film anymore downstairs, so I came upstairs. But it was so pretty, and that was one of those times where I've always wanted to go to Jamaica, but I never really had a reason to go there, if that makes sense. So that was a really good reason to go there. And we were in Ocho Rios, which is right where all the fun stuff is. So there's Dun River Falls and all sorts of other excursions that you could do. They even have a bobsled roller coaster over there. So needless to say, the wedding was fun. The excursions were fun. I had a similar experience when I went to Hawaii for a wedding. I know it's not out of the country, but I never would have gone to Hawaii otherwise because it's just so far, you know. Like Hawaii, we went for 2 weeks and it was also for a wedding. And two of my best friends got married and we got an Airbnb down there. And one of them is from Hawaii. So she gave us a whole to-do list. We got to see 2 islands. So we spent our time around Honolulu and we went to like the North Shore. We went to Waikiki. We did all the like fun touristy stuff. And then we got to spend time on Kona and see just the beautiful nature that Hawaii has to offer. Both experiences were such amazing food experiences with like salt fish, breakfast dishes. And that was the first time I had jerk chicken. Jerk chicken is so good. And then in Hawaii, my friend actually cooked us some fried spam and all these other things that I didn't even realize that they ate down there. We had all this fresh fruit. The fruit was so good. And I also had some fresh fish, which I don't really like any sushi or anything, but they kept feeding me this raw fish that was so good. I didn't even know that it was raw. It's called poke. I don't know if you had like a poke bowl here. So kind of my idea of poke is this kind of like mushy, fishy stuff. But there it is so fresh and I was like, oh, this is why people eat poke. Like you don't even taste any fish on it. It just tastes like meaty. I don't know how to explain it, but it was so good. And I would definitely eat it again, guys. Thanks for making me try it. Another way to see the world is with a big group of friends. So living in New York, I met people from all over the world. And it freaked me out when we went to the airport because I'm used to getting there an hour early and, you know, you do this and the proper protocol. They're very European and they just get there like right before the flight leaves and all this stuff. It was very stressful, but it was fun. And they were right. We always made the flight. But in my mind, it's this big, huge like security system over in Germany and Amsterdam and stuff. But it was literally like you just walk into the airport. And it was even crazier when we did a Spain trip together because Spain, I remember the security really like the metal detector and 2 like fold up tables. There wasn't like any wall or anything. Like you could have walked around the table. It was very awkward. You know, Europe is very different than what I'm used to in America. I'll just put it that way. These trips were epic because we all wanted to do different things. So for example, in Spain, we went to Barcelona, we went to Madrid, we went to Ibiza. We did it all literally in like 4 days. It was crazy. We just kind of like island hopped and city hopped and it was crazy. And then we did the same with Germany and Amsterdam. We went to Cologne, we went to Frankfurt, and then we went up to Amsterdam. We were just like all over Germany and in Amsterdam. And then all of a sudden we were back home. It was another like 4-day trip. And that was actually, I almost didn't go on that trip. It was during the cold season. And I was like, guys, why are we going there when it's like freezing? And they're like, do you want to be cold here or do you want to be cold in Amsterdam? And I was like, I'd rather be cold in Amsterdam. And that trip was also cool because it was the Christmas season. So they had all their Christmas fairs and they had these huge things of sausages. It was just this big metal thing that they would rake the sausages over the fire. Such good memories. But I never would have done it unless they dragged me on the group trip. And the other trip I want to mention, I don't want to talk about all my trips. I'll take an hour video or so. But the other trip I want to mention is the last one that I did, which was in Royal Hideaway Playa Car. I'll leave the video up here. But we met this really cool girl, and she was from Amsterdam, and she happens to live in the same area of Mexico. She was in Merida, which was like a 3-hour drive from Playa del Carmen where we were. And during that trip, I don't know if you watched the video or not, but our plane got delayed. So we were only supposed to be there 7 days. We ended up being there 10 days. So then we were like, oh, what do we do? We're kind of tired of being on a resort kind of thing. We're ready to experience the city. So we were looking into getting an Airbnb or something. And our friend from Amsterdam was leaving that day. So she was like, well, why don't you guys just come here? And we were like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, just come. And then if you rent a car, we could all take the car back because I have to come back this way anyway to go to the airport. And what are the chances our new flight was leaving on the same day? So not only did we get to have an awesome time in Playa del Carmen, we also got to drive in Mexico, which I never would have done because everybody always talks about the cartel and everything. But we drove through Mexico to Merida, and on the way we saw Chichen Itza. Here's another video. It was one of the wonders of the world, which I never would have seen because we were so like, oh, it's COVID and we're scared. And, you know, unless our friend from Amsterdam would have invited us over, we never would have seen it, and it was right there. Can you imagine being next to one of the wonders of the world and you're just like, oh no, I'm not going to go see that. Like, what were we thinking? So it's funny how things happen. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little walk down memory lane, and I hope that inspired you guys to travel the world too. I know it can be scary, but just expand your social circle and at least you'll always have somebody to fall back on if something happens. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video, and don't forget to subscribe, trying to hit that 1,000 mark. Thanks.